to my video about enterprise security and threat intelligence. I'm going to apologize right beforehand. This is going to be a very fast video. I'm going to go through this in really quick, and then I'll put some supplemental videos along to cover some of the more topics such as troubleshooting and things like that. But I am going to say threat intelligence. I've gone through the docs. It was not the most pleasant thing in the world to understand this. It took me, this is one of the parts of enterprise security that was the most difficult for me. Maybe it's not for you, maybe it'll come highly intuitive. Hopefully this video overcomes a lot of what I had to do. I just couldn't put two and two together. So anyway, I'm going to put this tutorial out so we'll help you guys hopefully be able to overcome the pitfalls that I had with enterprise security and implementing threat intelligence. First off, I just felt like it was important to give it a concept of what is going to occur in enterprise security and threat intelligence. I can almost guarantee there will be more videos going in depth walking through how this is being done. But the principle is Splunk Enterprise Security comes built with a whole bunch of threat feeds. We'll show those. You can just turn them on, and if the threat feeds are configured correctly, and I'm saying that because not all the threat feeds do work correctly, and so if they are, down will come the data. It'll take, and the data will then get pushed to to ES lookups. It'll be broken down based off the type of Intel data is, and then that Intel data will be sent as a KV store bundle to your indexers, and it will look pretty much every 40 minutes over your safe searches and look for those indicators inside your data. And I'll show exactly what it's looking for, but the concept is, in comes a threat feed. You turn that threat feed on, it automatically maps it on the lookups, so you're taken care of. If you have the appropriate data models and the data accelerated on your system, then the risk alerts will go off. They will be looking through your systems. They might be looking at your certificates data model. They might be looking at your web traffic data model, your DNS data model, your network traffic data model, whatever the case may be. It'll look at those different data models, and it will then, if it flags them, it'll create a risk alert inside the risk alerts index. And then if you want to, you can turn on the correlation searches, which if you're not familiar with correlation searches, please recognize that this is a playlist. Look down below in the link. There will be a link to the entire playlist where you can see my section on correlation searches, but you turn on a correlation search and it will create notables for you, telling you right into your enterprise security incident management system. You will see the alerts for your threat feeds. Another means you can do is CSVs. You can take your own CSVs of data, load them up, do a little configuration to them, and then they will be populated into the ES lookups. You can load up 10, 15 different CSVs, and it will compile them all together into their appropriate ES lookups, which will then go out to the risk alert, create risk alerts, and you then turn the correlation searches on. You can also use Splunk searches to fill in Intel, send it to the ES lookups, make risk alerts, correlation searches, etc. All right, so let's do some of the most simple things. What we're going to cover in this video is quickly turning on the threat feeds, and we'll talk about uploading our own CSVs and then the process to get them to map into the ES lookups. All right, to make that happen, first off, let's just go with the easiest part, threat feeds. If I go grab my, well, first I mentioned that there are internal KVs. These are them. There's a KV for certificate intel, and these are the fields it takes. Email intel, file intel, HTTP intel, IP intel, process hash, registry intel, service intel, and user intel. You can add more fields if you want. These are the defaults. If you want to add more fields, you go into the props, into the actual KV settings in the back end and in the UI, and you add those fields like you would modify a KV store. Not going to cover that here. I probably can cover that in another video. And you just need to make sure that, for example, if I'm putting in an Intel, which I'm going to make one for IP Intel, so we're going to do an IP address. What we need is a description, an IP, and a weight. So I put a Excel sheet together, real simple. There's my description, there's my IP, and the weight. Weight is an arbitrary number. I just pick 3. You can play with it as you start. The higher the weight, the more it shows up. Remember that Splunk is built off a risk alerting system. If you have high fidelity alerts, you put a higher weight on them. If you have low fidelity alerts, you put a lower weight on them. And so I put here, these are bad alerts. I don't even know what 99.999999 were. This is my enterprise security. One thing I have learned when playing with new systems, playing with new things, you always want to put what's called a canary. You want the concept is. You want something that will flag. Nothing's worse than saying, is this working or not? Is it not working because I haven't had an alert fire off? Or is it not working because it's configured wrong? I'm sending stuff in. This is my Splunk server. I guarantee you I will see logs dealing with this Splunk server. So I've set a canary off. When I know that this is working, then I will remove it from my list and go forward. But to make sure everything works, it's always good to put a canary in your system. All right, so back to the simple part. We're going to come in here to Splunk. The way you can get this is called the threat intelligence management. We're going to keep coming back to this place, but the first place you can do for data input is data inputs. The easiest is this threat intelligence, which I'll come back to, but another method is you can go settings, data inputs, and scroll down until you find intelligence. And if I go look, we'll eventually find it. It's usually, I wish there was a search feature up here where you could just grab which one you're looking for. Yeah, but there's intelligence downloads. There's 30 different ones configured. I can add a new one if I want to, but I'm just going to grab the 30 just by clicking this blue, and I can get, for example, the Alexa top 1 million sites. It's disabled. If I want it on, I just click enable. Now I want to show you something. When I click this little link, it's going to take me to the URL. If I go grab this and I put this in my URL, that's something I recommend doing is error. Guess what? If I try to turn that one on out of the box, it's going to fail because the URL doesn't work. Whatever they've done, they've changed it. You can't get the Alexa top 1 million by using that URL. If you have a different place of getting it, go ahead and feel free to change it. And so anyway, that's one of the things I had to learn real quick is you got to go check these sources. Cisco top 1 million, on the other hand, if I go click that one, I've got mine enabled. There's the URL. I go grab it. I put it in my browser. It's going to take a minute, but boom, down it comes. It's going to download the top 1 million. It is a valid threat intelligence. So I can turn that on. Emerging threats, I took this emerging threats IP. It works. I don't have to click the URL, but if you want to modify it, you just grab it right there. Oops, sorry, that's threat intelligence. That's why I like the threat intelligence better. But anyway, you can make your changes right here. They're all going to be, notice you've got these options that you've got, threat intelligence, download settings, parsing options, download options, proxy options. That's how you can set those up. I'm going to show you the exact other way inside Enterprise Security. So you just enable, disable. That's all it takes to get those coming in. You want local domain, well, probably not local domain. You want iBlockless spyware. If it's a valid URL, just click enable, walk away, come back in 20, 30 minutes. You probably will have the stuff done that I'm going to show. And some of this is going to require, I want you to, heads up, I'm going to pause the video because I'm not going to have the data coming in fast enough. It runs on cron jobs, and if you get it at the wrong time, you're not going to get it for a few minutes. So it's not just instantaneous. Just have a little bit of patience. All right. How do I get to this threat intelligence management page? Because we're going to live on this page as we start to do this. If we go configure, incident data enrichment, threat intelligence management. When I click that, that's inside Enterprise Security. I'll do it again. Configure, data enrichment, threat intelligence management. That's going to show the exact same things, but now I have the URL. And so I can just copy this URL and see if it works. I can see how often it's refreshing the stuff. This gives a much nicer visual effect to seeing this stuff. But basically, you can see this is going to run every day. This is going to run twice a day. And all it does is it goes and grabs that list and it looks what's changed. And it modifies that. It'll update your new list. The beauty is it's Splunk. So I will show in another video, but the understanding is there is now some indexes in your internal dealing with intelligence, and you can actually see it will say Cisco top 1 million did an update, and it will tell you what it changed, whether it was successful, what fields changed, etc. All that's being logged in Splunk, so you can Splunk how well this stuff is working. Amazing ability to keep track of what's going on. So I've got my Cisco top 1 million sites enabled, and I've got my emerging threats IP block list running. If I click this and I want to configure it, Remember, I showed that one page? Well, this one's tabbed it. There's general, there's parsing, there's advanced. Here's a URL, I change it. This gives a weight. Again, this takes care of the weight problem you're dealing with. It helps modify some of the weight. If your stuff is popping up too much in risk, lower the weight. If it's popping up not enough, raise the weight. It's something to play with out of the scope of this video, but the concept is you want your risk scores to go up, adjust the weight. Parsing. This is, if you're getting one from Splunk, it's probably already set, but here's your regular expressions to parse the data as it comes in. And you'll see that this is saying, hey, IP is the first field, and et cetera. And so it's grabbing all that data. This is how it extracts the fields. We're going to be building that when we build our own. Well, I actually won't need to do that because my Intel is very simplified. So if you need to, there is documentation on this. I could do a video on it, but as a general rule, if you keep it simple, it'll work and you don't need to play with it. Anyway, so those are your features there. And what we'll notice is, so we're going to pay attention that this is an emerging threat IP list. If I come over here to threat matching, what we can see is these are the items that are getting mapped. So we actually have 6 areas here. Then we got more pages. Basically, if you want, we're going to be looking for the certificate common name. That's one of the Intel pieces. And you'll notice if you look at supported types of threat data, certificate issuer, there's that stuff. So it's going to look for that in Intel information, the certificate common name, and it's going to look at in your all certificates data model and anything mapped to that field in the data model. Same with or, this is the subject name. Let's keep something a lot more simple. You have domains. It's going to look at this interval, 40 minutes back, 10 minutes, and so it's going to look in a 30-minute window, 40 minutes back, and 10 minutes as the latest time, and it's going to look at all your certificates under email domain, all certificates under subject email domain, all domains .domain, all email, and web. So it's looking across a bunch of different data sources. Dest, we're going to look in the DNS answers. We're going to look in the all traffic answers. IDS attacks, Dest, web Dest. And so if you have all your data mapped to data models and then you ingest the Intel, it will automatically start looking. I'm going to show you the query. I'm not going to walk through it all, but this is the query, and you can see that it's using a T-stats to go against the network resolution data model, network traffic, intrusion detection, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's just adding all this stuff from your different Intel pieces that you loaded up, and it's going to run. But if you just turn those things on, they just automatically work. You don't even need to worry about it. It's done for you. All right. We're now going to upload an Intel file of my own. I showed it briefly. Here's my CSV file. I hinted that I was going to do it. I followed the documentation. Go away. I follow the documentation here, which this is just the Splunk Enterprise Security documentation coming to threat intelligence supported types. I'm going to do IP Intel, that's what I want. So I need to make sure I have a description, an IP, and a weight. Do I have that? Yes, I do. So I'm going to save this as, save as. We're going to put in documents, that's fine. I want this to be a CSV. Text.csv, and I'm going to say YouTube video.csv and YouTube Intel. We're going to hit save. I'm fine. Want to be as text format. That's cool. All right. So now we're going to come in, grab my Splunk Enterprise Security. We're going to come in here and let's go to settings. I'm going to come in and we're going to, I have Splunk app for lookup files. There's lots of ways to upload your lookup file. I'm going to upload it with lookup editor. I'm going to make a new lookup, new CSV. It might be a KV based on how big you want how big your lookup's going to be, and I'm going to call this YouTube Intel.csv. What's the app? I'm going to put it outside of Splunk Enterprise Security. if you've been following my other videos with data models, there's YouTube data models. I'm going to throw it there. One of the reasons that might be is then you can pass it to other enterprise security stuff, whatever. I tend to try to keep my stuff out of enterprise security. That's a personal preference of my own. But I'm going to put in the YouTube data models. I'm going to call it YouTube Intel CSV, and I'm going to hit the import button. And now I can actually go upload my file from documents. Actually, there it is. Import. Now my lists are all done. I'm going to hit save lookup. It's got the permissions. We're all set. All right. Now what I want to do, this is where it gets complicated. There's no easy way of going around this. What you're gonna need is a managed lookup. It's a new type of lookup that I've never seen except in enterprise security. But we're gonna go in here, configure content management. This principle will work for a lot of different things, but it's a content management object. I'm gonna go create new content, and I am looking for a managed lookup. And I'm gonna create a new managed lookup. And I'm going to leave it in enterprise security. And no, let's see. YouTube. All right. I'm going to pause that. I messed this up. I was not supposed to use lookup editor to put this in. This is wanting me to put the lookup here already. And so I apologize for that. As I said, it's complicated. There's a lot of things going on. So I'm going to go grab my YouTube video here, my YouTube Intel here and put it in, which means I'm going to need to get rid of the other one. We're going to go ahead and we'll leave it in enterprise security for now so there's no conflict. I'm going to call it YouTube Intel real. Let's go IP. That way I'm giving an idea. I'm saying it's my Intel and it's IP information. And I'm going to call it IP. And we're going to, we want it manually edited. Nope, we'll be fine with that. And we'll just put whatever label we want. And I'm just going to keep it as YouTube Intel IP. Allow lookup editing. That means can I modify it with lookup editor? Yep. And this is Intel, IP Intel for demo purposes, L.A.M.E creations. So if I hit save, it's going to grab that. It's going to make me a lookup. So if I come into lookup edit, I should be able to find it now if I go YouTube. So yeah, I should not have uploaded it. It's a slightly different process if you want to upload it, and I'm not going to cover it here. It's easier if you just follow this process. My bad. YouTube, there's my YouTube Intel IP. This one is being handled by Enterprise Security, and I'm just going to erase this guy, just get rid of it. Yep, delete. I don't need it. So now I just have YouTube Intel IP, the one I just added in. Now if I come into Threat Intel, and I come to Sources, remember how I get there, it's configure, data enrichment, threat intelligence management. I'm going to go make a new, they call these, I think they call them documents. I'm not 100% sure why they're called that, but that's what they're called, threat documents. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to make a new, and it's going to be a new upload. And see here is if, nope, see this is if I want to drop a CSV there. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to do local, new local, and we're going to call it threat intelligence document name. We're going to call it YouTube Intel IP demo, description, demo for Intel CSV import. What's the type? I'm going to call it IP. It's arbitrary, so it doesn't really matter. If it was from taxi, you do need to call it taxi. I've not done taxi yet, but anyway, now I'm going to find that lookup. It's going to be called lookup YouTube. Lookup YouTube Intel IP. It's pointing to that managed lookup that I put in there. I can adjust the weight score if I want to. How often do I want this to update? And what it's going to do is it's going to look at that YouTube Intel IP and update it. So if I write a Splunk query that it does an output lookup and adds new fields to that Intel thing, it will populate. So that's one way I can use queries, Splunk queries, to populate the Intel. And so it's keeping itself dynamic. It's not a static document. It will just keep updating. You update this IP, you update this lookup, it will update every twice a day and tell you the differences. And it will age out. And so basically, this tells you how long you're going to keep your Intel data in there, unless it comes in new and fresh. And so this allows you the age out period right built into it. Really neat. Um, this is threat intelligence. And so we're going to hit save. Let's see, if I was doing parsing, if I needed to parse the file, it's a CSV, so there's no reason to parse. If I need to call out my fields, if you put multiple Intel sources into one CSV, you will need parsing on there. That's not part of the scope of this, so I'm good. We don't need to do anything in anything there. So we're just going to hit save. And now I will need to give some patience and let this thing run. But I do want to show some of the things I've done while we wait for them to populate. The concept is if I come into security domains, security intelligence, and I look at threat intelligence, threat activity, remember I mentioned in the little presentation that if I see something going off, it will create an alarm. That'll be under threat activity. Threat artifacts are all of the intel sources that I have activated, and it gives you kind of a high-level summary of what's all going on there. So I can see what's making up my intel. And so that's what I'm looking for to populate, and I'm hoping it'll be up there right now, but if not, you'll see the stuff I have already loaded. So if I'm going to hit threat artifacts, sorry, I've got a cold. Hopefully it's not contagious. I always joke that that's how computer bugs are passed, right? So if I come in here to my this threat artifacts, it's going to list all of the Intel sources I just put in. Here is my YouTube Intel, and you can see there's where it's located. It's a CSV. It's part of this YouTube Intel. It's an IP, and there are 2 values in there. How many are there? 2. There they are. That's working perfect. All right. Then these are other ones I've learned. I told you I turned on emerging threats. Emerging threats has 1,149 items in it right now. It's a threat list. Um, then I put in this test intel while I was trying to learn it. There's 2 in there, 13 from multiple sites. And if I go look at this, here's a file intel. So this is looking for files. These are all of my network artifacts. And so you can see they're all IP-based intel. Not because I named them that. Remember, IP Intel comes from supported types. There it is, IP Intel. And they're all CSVs. I have 1,149 plus 4, so 1,153. No domains, URLs, or HTTP counts. And here are the threat groups, and there's some additional information. What's their categories, malware, aliases, etc. So I can see basically a little summary here: certificate artifacts, network artifacts, endpoint artifacts, email artifacts. Keep track of all your stuff. You want to search for things, you can search for it right there. There are those files that we talked about. You can do it by categories. You can do it by, if there were threat groups, you can put groups into your categories. And so if you're tracking groups, you can look up all the intel pieces on those groups. Malware aliases, Intel source, search it, whatever. You can also go down into the nitty gritty. So here's IP intelligence. I can see every IP. It can give me information such as this is the city. Here's the IP addresses it's looking for. So I get a nice little quick, I can look it up or with CSV, KV store, or I can look it up here. And so all that stuff is listed. Really nice and easy and set up for you. And now Let's go look at my security intelligence. I don't know if I'm going to get anything. I doubt I will have triggered on my IP address of my Splunk server. When I come back and do a next video, I will show it just because it's always nice to show that it's working. If I go to threat intelligence and I look at threat activity, I will have alerts. And the reason being is, if you remember, I had a test intel document in there. I actually put a canary in that one first, and it was 8.8.8.8. Considering I use Google's DNS server as my domain, as my backup domain controller, sorry, my backup DNS, it's going to pop. And you'll see it there, test intel, and what was it? You can see it. It popped a bunch, and that's what's going on. Going to on the destination field, I am going to 8.8.8. This machine, my machine that it, and this will ultimately, when I'm done, they'll both pop because the source will be malicious and the destination. That'll be kind of funny to see. Anyway, so I can see really quickly my threat activity details. And so this is showing anytime one of my machines hits during the last 24 hours. If I extend this out to 7 days, we're going to have more hits. Still the exact same piece, but we can see how often it's hitting. Hit 47 times, hit 48 times, hit 46 times during each of these hours. I am clearly going to this threat intel source. And so that's kind of nice to have that data right there for me as a correlation search to do with the intelligence events, and you turn that on and say, if I see an intel event, make a notable. And it's just like that. Now you got alerts coming in. This was the overarching speed through this. I will now put more videos where I'm going to spend more time walking through each of the different pieces. But this was supposed to be fast, and it's still a long video. Anyway, I hope it was helpful. I hope it helps you move from being a lame analyst to a Splunk ninja, and hope to see you keep coming back to the videos.